What's poppin'? My name is Duckhead, and today I'd like to discuss how a lot of people have been finding that Killer has been feeling harder lately, slash, it's been feeling weaker lately, right? And, on the other side of that token, survivors have been pushing back, saying that their games have been feeling more difficult because the Killers feel like they're like tunneling and slugging and camping or whatever the fuck, right? So their games have also been feeling more unenjoyable. So I want to discuss that here today, and I want to discuss more so how Killer has been feeling weaker slash harder to play, whatever the fuck, right? So this is a fucking layered discussion, right? There's a bunch of layers to this, so just please try and bear with me because there's a bunch of layers to this shit, and I'm going to try to peel them all back. So first of all, a little background about me. I just got back from a 5-month break from this game where I didn't upload any content for it at all, other than like maybe 1 or 2 streams. Where I played like once or twice in 2 play sessions. And now that I am back, I have been playing more Survivor than Killer because I find Survivor to be more consistently enjoyable than Killer as it stands currently. Before this, I was playing Killer and Survivor 50-50 to the point where I was getting down to Iridescent Rank 1 with both roles. Now I'm playing more Survivor than I am Killer. So that's a little background about me. So you can't go into the comments and say I'm like fucking biased towards Killer or whatever the fuck, right? So apparently Killer is more difficult now, and this is backed up by statistics. Like with kill rates are down across the board, apparently, right? So first of all, why is Killer feeling so weak, and why is it feeling so hard to play? I want to suck myself off and fucking pat myself on the back real quick. I've been calling this shit for the past few years. I've been calling this shit. With the changes they've been consistently making to Killers, I have been calling this shit for the past few years, alright? And people call me a killer man, all kinds of shit. I've been calling this. If you go back across my channel. Alright? So, and before I go on, even a certain fucking YouTuber, who I won't say the name of, but if you've been watching my channel, you probably know who I'm talking about, who absolutely lambasted me for fucking being turbo biased to fucking Killer. Even this nigga's been saying that the fucking game has been more difficult for Killer. Anyway, let me stop sucking myself off. Sorry. First of all, the philosophy that Behavior has been trying to adopt is stronger base kit and weaker perks, right? What I mean by stronger base kit, they've been giving Killers their best base kit add-ons so that they can be more consistently stronger without having to bring strong shell to top, right? Like strong add-ons, excuse me. And in turn, they've been nerfing, things like Save the Best for Last. They've been nerfing things like Hemorrhage and Mangled. And they've been nerfing, most importantly, Gen Regression. So I just want to go through a brief history of the nerf Gen Regression. And before I do that, I want to state that I believe Gen Regression is at one of its weakest points it's ever been at, right? One of its weakest points. Alright? And I'm going to go over like a brief history of Gen Regression. When I started playing, it was the OG Ruin meta, right? I mean the red skill check Ruin, to where you're getting red skill checks, and if you don't hit a great skill check, then your gen doesn't progress as quickly as it would if there was no Ruin, right? So you basically had to hit great skill checks, and if you didn't, your gen would go slower, right? That was OG Ruin. And they nerfed that, right? They nerfed that, they got rid of it. And they changed it to 200% Ruin, to where when you get off the gen, your generator would regress by 200% progress, right? Which was still strong. Ruin was still strong at that point in time. And you still had your 25% pop goes the weasel of total gen regression to fall back on. And this was a good gen regression meta. Then they nerfed that. And when they nerfed the 200%, I skipped something. Ruin Undying. Ruin Undying was a thing. They nerfed Undying, and then you just had 200% Ruin. Then they nerfed that, and that gave birth to the Gen Kick meta, right? So you had your Eruption Call of Brine Overcharge, which was broken, admittedly so, just like Ruin Undying was. That was broken. They nerfed that, And then you had your Pop Goes the Weasel Scorchic Pain Resonance meta. And at that point in time, Scorchic Pain Resonance was 15% for unlimited uses. Like however many times you fucking hook them on a Scorch hook, right? You get 15% of the generate the most progress. And you also got noise notification. So that was a pretty solid gene regression meta. And then sometime down the road, they changed Scorchic Pain Resonance to be 25% for 4 uses. And they made Pop Goes the Weasel 20%, right? And those were your preeminent perks. Then they changed Pop Goes the Weasel to be 30% of current gen regression to go along with 25% of Scorchic Pain Resonance for 4 uses, right? Like, just bear with me. I had to go through the history of this. And now we have it to where Scorchic Pain Resonance, right, is 20%, right? And Pop Goes the Weasel has been nerfed back down to 20% of current progress. So this is where we stand. And of course you have Grim Embrace and things of that nature, Deadlock. I'm not really mentioning those because I don't perceive those to be as powerful in Dead Man Switch. I don't perceive those to be as powerful as, Pop Goes the Weasel before it was nerfed and Scorchic Pain Resonance before it was nerfed. So where we currently stand, I think, is a weak state of gen regression. And that adversely affects killers in the B and below tiers. If your name is fucking Hillbilly, Nurse, Spirit, Huntress even, Singularity if you play him well enough, right? Dracula, killers in A and above tiers. Plague, if you have a really good base kit, these changes don't really affect you all that much. But if you're a killer like maybe a Demogorgon, certainly a Myers, Trapper, Clown, Legion, Ghostface, etc., etc., etc. If you're a killer like most of your M1 killers, you are adversely affected by this gen regression meta because it's weaker. Like first of all, you are required for Pop Goes the Weasel, if you're wanting to run that, you are required to go to the gen that you want to regress and kick it yourself. So if it's all the way the fuck across the map, right, that adversely affects you because you don't have any movement to get there. So gen regression for you feels a little weaker. And then they nerfed Scorchic Pain Resonance to be only 20%. So this makes killer feel weaker overall because, of course, more people play like the bottom fucking B and below tiers because there's more B and below tier killers in the game than there are A and higher, in my opinion at least, right? So that's making the game feel harder because it's feeling like gens go too fast because the gen regression is weak. It doesn't have anything to do, in my opinion, that survivors do the generators too fast. There is nothing wrong with Survivor right now. In my humble opinion, there is nothing wrong with Survivor. Survivor is completely fine. I don't think anything needs to be changed about Survivor. The gens aren't going too fast because survivors are doing them too fast. They're going too fast because you don't have adequate gen regression, in my opinion, right? Even with healing, goddamn loud ass car come to this bitch. Even with healing, right? Even with healing, I don't believe with healing that healing is too fast, right? I believe that it's just that anti-healing is too weak, and I will get to that, right? So I've established now that like gen regression, since it's so weak right now, it's affecting the majority of the killer cast and making it feel like their games are harder to play. Now on to things that adversely affect the low tier to mid tier killers, like basically all of your M1 killers. First of all, to piggyback off of anti-healing is weaker now than it used to be. So now the mangled / hemorrhage stats effect or whatever the fuck, it is not forever, right? It does not last until you get healed. It just lasts a short while, right? I believe it's like 80 seconds, something like that. Sorry, 90 seconds. It's 90 seconds, right? That's how long it lasts. And the thing is, since it lasts 90 seconds and not forever, that's only going to affect the fucking survivor for a minute and a half, right? That's not going to affect them forever. So Anti-healing is just weaker across the board because of that. And the problem with this is you're not seeing killers in your top tiers like fucking Huntress and Nurse and Hillbilly, and maybe you'll see it on Spirit. But most of the top high tier killers, you're not seeing those killers run things like Sloppy Butcher. You're not seeing that, right? They have another fucking perk. They have another perk instead of Sloppy Butcher that's more effective on them. People who run Sloppy Butcher are usually your fucking killers who actually hit you with M1. So because of that, these mid to lower tier killers lose a lot of map pressure because the anti-healing is not as strong as it used to be. And since that's the case, survivors are healing more easily now, right? So that adversely, in my opinion, affects the mid to low tier killers. Also, they've done things like nerfs fucking save the best for last. For the life of me, I don't understand why they nerfed that perk. Why there is a groundswell for fucking save the best for last to get nerfed is beyond me. Absolutely beyond me. So now, this perk that only M1 killers benefited from, like these higher tier killers did not benefit from this perk, only M1 killers benefited from this shit. You nerf that to where now like M2 attacks take away stacks. So like a fucking Demogorgon shredding someone is taking away your save the best for last stack. A trapper using a trap and getting the obsession caught in it, that's taking away your save the best for last stacks, right? That takes away your save the best for last stacks for what? Why? What's the reason? And then on top of that, the cooldown buff that you got has been reduced. So you're taking away tools that really helped the mid to low tier killers, right? And once again, these adversely affect the mid to lower tier killers, which is most of the fucking killer cast. And all of this in tandem combines to make this game feel like it is more difficult for the killer side. And what does that do? I predicted this. That will force people to do one of two things, or both. Either you're going to start playing higher tier killers because you're just like, fuck this. I can't play a killer like Michael Myers and play, well enough to contest these survivors that I perceive to be more difficult. I'm going to play fucking Spirit Blight, Nurse Hillbilly, Plague, Huntress, whoever the fuck, and fucking so I can at least have a chance. Or you're going to use dirty tactics, underhanded tactics, perceived dirty underhanded tactics, like slugging, camping, tunneling, proxy camping, things of that nature. And that leads me into how survivors also think that their games are more difficult because of the pushback they're giving the killers saying that their games are more difficult. So this is basically a vicious cycle, right? And all these aforementioned changes, I hope I did a good job of laying them out. All that together makes killer feel like the weaker / harder role currently, right? Now, how to fix this, that's an entirely different video. I don't want to go into that in this video. How to fix this is an entirely different topic. I think I've yapped longer fucking enough. That's an entirely different topic, right? So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you think that killer is harder now? Do you think that killer is easier now? Where the fuck, right? Which one do you think? Anyway, I'm out this bitch. Y'all have a good one. Bye! Going. Hopefully I did a good enough job. I know I was fucking yapping. Hopefully y'all were able to follow this. I know I was just jumping from point to point. Forgive me for that. Anyway, I'm out this bitch. Bye. I'm going.